hyping. 87. How do I see the damage? Split it. I think I at least hit him with 2 shots. Because my mouse is not a gaming mouse, so I cannot land precise shots. Okay, quick join. PNC 2023 PUBG Nation Cup. From 15th to 17th for Ultimate Global Showdown. 300,000? Damn. Come out. Come on. Yeah! Yeah. Come on. Wait. My phone fell down. Puji. Okay, let's see where we can land. Probably here. Yep. That's where we gonna land. This is the place, right? So who's with me? No one? Cool. Still no one. Nice. Come on. hollow. What's in here? Nothing. Level 2. I picked up something. Ah. Level 2 helmet, level 1 laser sight, not required. I'm in the zone, right? Yeah. At least safe for a few minutes. Whoop, whoop. Nothing. Okay. Flash adder. A compensator would be nice instead of flash adder. Okay, so you can't put 2x on Tommy. Why is he not reloading? No, I have the ammo. Uh, okay, level 2 back. 4x. Probably. Yes, please. Yes, please. I'm stocking all these stuff like I'm gonna use it. But by the time I got spotted by an enemy, all this will be gone. Okay, 3, 4. Okay, so let's figure out where is this guy? Probably here. Anyways, I'm gonna check the hotkeys. Different weapons. 1, Tommy gun. 2, sniper. What's the 3? Nothing. 4, nothing. 5, mid. 6, nothing. 7, medkits. And 890 probably heal. Yeah! Okay, the doors are closed. Here, here, here also. And if I'm not wrong, there should... there's a bike. By the way, I don't have any shoes. Okay. Hmm. बन गया.
230 का है.
try, nice try. Let's see if I got any damage. Should I use the Tommy? Zama protected him. He would have been gone. Shame, shame. See, damage 25. 1 kill. Finally. Making a bit of progress. This is my current time favorite bike, and probably if I had friends, probably buy one, two. Right in the bus.
Today, Triumph announced a pair of brand spanking new small to mid capacity bikes which look absolutely awesome. So here are the 10 key things that you need to know about them, and stick around to the end to find out why I think these could be the best ever selling bikes. So not one but two bikes, starting with the Speed 400, which slots into the bottom of their modern classic roadster lineup with the Speed Twin 900 and 1200 above it. This is the more road biased of the two bikes, and you'll see that from the chassis specs, which we'll get onto in a mo. And then the second bike is the Scrambler 400X, so very similar but with some slight tweaks that make it a bit more appropriate for off-road riding, but also with a more rugged and upright appearance.
Okay, no one coming. verticals. Nothing. You already have level 2. I have more rounds of sniper than AR. Wait, I haven't checked this now. Quick draw. What's that? Again. So many motions. Okay, I haven't checked this other room. Oh, finally got something useful. Full grip. Mm, X quick. Okay, I'm guessing he's probably a bot. No vehicles. PUBG. Done.
Today,
Come on. Where is this guy? A bot, should I say? Ah. Okay, I am in the red zone and the circle is closing. Where is he? Where is he? Long way. Two energy drinks, 3 painkiller, 4 first aid. Just look at the rounds. 50 rounds of AR, 160 rounds of sniper. Finally. I should better move. The circle is closing in. No, 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 no. Running round and round and round and round and round. "59 packets lost, 82 ping."
Triumph announced a pair of brand speakers. So perhaps with the X suffix on this new 400, Triumph are leaving some room for more models, largely based around the same design, but with some potential variations in hardware and spec. Like spoke wheels on this little scrambler would look super cool. But let's jump into the details on these two bikes, and we'll start with the engine, which they've clearly styled up to make it look a little bit more like the Bonneville Parallel Twins higher up in the range. But in fact, it's actually an all-new 398cc liquid-cooled single, which they say is Triumph designed and developed. As you'd expect from a brand new engine, there are plenty of thoroughly modern features like the ride-by-wire throttle, diamond-like coatings for reduced friction, a finger follower valve train for reduced reciprocating mass, and with all that combined, it revs up for a respectable peak power figure of 40 PS at 8,000 RPM, which is right where you'd expect a bike in this market segment to sit. Torque is also decent with 37.5 Newton meters produced at 6,500 RPM, and as you can see here from the dyno chart, it's nice and flat across the rev range with a healthy bump in that sort of 6,000 to 8,000 RPM range. On top of that, they say they've optimized the crankshaft inertia for low speed drivability, which will generally mean it's got a weightiness to it that gives you that sense of chugging torque in the low revs, and that'll also help to make it feel less stallable, so perfectly suited to a little retro and also handy for the less experienced rider. At the back, we've got a neat looking upswept silencer on each bike, so a single exit on the Speed 400 and then a double exit on the Scrambler with a twin skin stainless steel header that should help to prevent discoloration. Now they also say they've tuned the exhaust sound for that typical Triumph richness and character, and I'd say that's something they generally do pretty well. The Bonnevilles, for example, have a nice meaty bassy sound to them despite the strict emissions regulations that so often nowadays stifle the acoustics on other bikes. It's also worth adding that both get a slip assist clutch which will prevent rear wheel lockups on aggressive downshifts, but also allows them to use lighter clutch springs, so a nice light feel at the lever which will help to reduce hand fatigue if you're in stop-start traffic. So a nice feature perhaps if you're thinking about getting one for commuting. So the engine on these two bikes is pretty much identical apart from a slight change in the final drive gearing, but where they mostly diverge is the chassis. So the Speed 400 is built around a new tubular steel frame, and it gets a bolt-on subframe and a cast aluminium swing arm, and this one rolls on 17-inch wheels front and rear, which are typical for a road bike and will generally give the best response and handling at the front end when on tarmac. Up front, there's a 43mm upside-down big piston fork built by Endurance, and that gets 140mm of travel. And then at the rear, we've got a preload adjustable monoshock with a remote reservoir, and that one gets 130mm of travel. Brakes come from Bybrake, which is a more affordable sub-brand of braking giants Brembo, and you get a 4-piston radially mounted caliper at the front on a 300mm disc, and there's a single pot caliper at the rear on a 230mm disc. Now both get braided hoses which generally flex and expand less than regular hoses under pressure, and so that ought to give you a more crisp and predictable feel at the brake lever. As for rubber, you get a pair of Metzeler Sportec M9RR tyres as standard, which are intended to be a sporty all-rounder for the road and should be perfectly suited to the intended use and riding style of this bike. Now over to the Scrambler, and we've got the same rudiments to the frame, but it has been tweaked a little bit to lengthen the wheelbase with a different head angle, so you're going to get a slightly bigger feeling bike, a little bit longer, and in terms of handling, it'll probably bias a little bit more towards stability rather than sporty quick turning. Now the wheels differ too, so up front we've got a 19-incher as opposed to the 17 on the Speed, and so if you do want to take it off-road, that's going to give you more ability to roll over rough terrain, and also it gives it a bit more of that Scrambler look, and I'd expect most of these bikes to do most of their miles actually on the road, so perhaps the looks are, a good proportion of the rationale. There's also a slightly different visual design to the wheels, so they're calling it V-spokes, and naturally you've got some more Scrambler specific tyres in the form of Metzeler's Karoo Streets, which are designed to be an all-rounder for a bit of on and off-road, and you'll often see these on adventure bikes and other Scramblers, and in my experience they're pretty good. They're not proper mud pluggers for heavy off-road use, but decent for road riding and a bit of gravel as well. Suspension also gets a little bit jacked up to tackle lumps and bumps, so you've got 150mm of travel front and rear, and although there's no ground clearance figures in the press release, you'd expect a bit of a boost there as well. Otherwise, it looks pretty much the same as the Speed 400, as do the brakes, which again are from Bybrake, and they look like the same setup. And so yeah, one's more low slung and entirely designed for the road, while the other, the Scrambler, sits up a bit more and can do some easy off-road stuff. But it is worth adding, the extra hardware and the extra bit of size comes with a bit of a weight penalty. So while the Speed 400 tips the scales at 160 270 kilograms wet. The Scrambler comes in at 179. Still pretty slender though, and it should be easy to manage, and it does look fairly competitive versus the other bikes in this market. As you'd expect, there's also a bit of a change in the riding position that comes with that bump in height. So the Speed 400 sits nice and low at 790mm in the seat, and that's going to make it perfect for shorter riders or anyone who's moving up from a 125 or 250 and wants something that feels easy to control when it comes to low speed maneuvers. Now they also say they've specifically tried to make it as narrow as possible at the waist, and that's to help with getting both feet down, which again is a massive confidence booster if you're not that experienced. The rest looks nice and neutral, so the pegs are in a regular sort of roadster position, the bar's not too low, and there's also decent provision for a passenger, so you've got a sizable perch there, and also an aluminium grab rail as standard in some markets. But switch to the Scrambler and you'll see a much more appropriate seat height for that style of bike, so 45mm higher up at 835, which really is quite a significant increase. Partly that's down to the higher sprung chassis of course, but also there's more room between the pegs and the seat by a good 17mm, and so it looks like the seat is also a touch chunkier, as well as a more commanding high up riding position. That's also going to help with transitioning between seated and standing riding. And then you've got handlebars that are a little further back towards the rider, which will sit them up a bit as opposed to the more sporty forward position of the Speed 400. So this one, the Scrambler, could be a great choice even for newer riders who are a bit on the tall side and find the Speed 400 just a touch too cramped. In terms of other features and tech, there are some nice touches on these bikes. So you've got dual channel ABS developed with Bosch, and there's also Bosch traction control on both bikes too. So great news for newer riders again, but also if you're often riding in wet weather and slippery conditions. Now with the Speed 400, you've only got the option to disable the traction control. That might be handy for more sporty or aggressive riding, but the Scrambler has switchable traction control and ABS, so perfect if you do want to ride it off-road and really get the bike sliding around. Settings like these will be managed through the new dash, which is a retro looking round analog speedo, and then you've also got an LCD display set into one side. And although it does look a little bit old school perhaps compared to some of the TFTs on some of the competition, it does suit the overall aesthetic of the bike quite nicely. On top of that, you've got LED lighting all round in typical Triumph style, a built-in transponder immobilizer, a USB charging socket, and a couple of neat accessories like heated grips and a tire pressure monitoring system. Looks wise, the Speed is the more sporty of the two of course, with very much the look of a baby Speed Twin 1200, and I think that's quite a big selling point, and it's probably one of, if not the best looking bike in the 400 market. The finish looks excellent as you'd expect from a Triumph, with tidy hardware all over the bike and some nice little extras like the bar end mirrors, and I think you've got some good color options here as well, so Carnival Red or Caspian Blue, and the Phantom Black, which looks a little bit more stealth. On all three colors you've got the Oversize and the Phantom Black, which looks a little bit more stealth. On all three colors you've got the oversized Triumph badge on the tank, which I think looks great, and then also the gold fork, which adds a little pop of color and sportiness. On the Scrambler we've got some extra genre specific styling cues like the hand guards, the regular stalk mirrors, the headlight guard, the bar pad, and the twin exit exhaust. And with this one you also get the Carnival Red and the Phantom Black, but naturally with it being a Scrambler there had to be a khaki green. These bikes get a more subtle small Triumph logo on the tank, and they also get a contrasting stripe across the middle there, and I honestly think they look, at first impressions anyway, really quite good, and as you'd expect from Triumph there's a wealth of accessories to help make them your own. With the Scrambler for example you've got the luggage, the engine bars, the fly screen, and the high mud guard, and it really does make it the smaller sibling of their bigger Scramblers. And while I will say I'm still looking forward to finding out what the engine's like to ride and how they handle, and I'd expect it, you know, being a Triumph to be at least decent if not very good, I think it's this image and heritage and stylishness that's surely going to be the big main pull for buyers. If you look at the bikes it's up against, like the Enfield 350s for example, you can see a little more attention to detail and flair in the finish, or you've got stuff like the BMW 310s and the KTM 390, stylishness that's surely going to be the big main pull for for buyers. If you look at the bikes it's up against, like the Enfield 350s for example, you can see a little more attention to detail and flair in the finish, or you've got stuff like the BMW 310s and the KTM 390s, which are a lot more modern and angular, so you could say lacking some of the character and timelessness. But really, at this end of the market, the other big factor has to be the price. Take the Speed 400 for example. I don't expect it to get right down to the sub £4,000 price of the Enfield Hunter 350, but it'll probably want to be at or near the £5,000 of the KTM 390 and BMW G310R. If they can do that, then that's why I fully expect this to be a huge seller for Triumph. Not only does it open them up to the massive Asian market, but also to newer riders here in the UK and Europe, as well as the US, who might not have the funds or license to buy a bike like the Speedtwin 900, which is currently the most affordable modern classic in their lineup. Now that bike starts at just under £9,000, so five-ish would almost half the cost of getting onto the Triumph ladder, and it also makes it look like quite a tempting proposition as like a little second bike. Can they do it though? Well, it's important to point out that while this bike is designed and developed in-house by Triumph, it'll actually largely be built on their behalf by Indian manufacturer Bajaj, as well as some units by Triumph in their own factories in Thailand and Brazil. So that should massively help to keep the cost low, but will it come at the sacrifice of quality or character or the ride? Well, we'll get to find out later in the year when it's launched out on the road, along with the final pricing. So if you want to see that video as soon as possible, and you've not already, then please do hit the subscribe button, and I'll leave you with a more detailed walk around of these two bikes, which I shot a couple of days later after this news piece at the Triumph Factory Visitor Experience, unless you're watching this video right away, in which case I'll put something else here and you'll have to. Welcome back everybody to another Motobob video. Now this week Triumph announced these two new little... Today Triumph announced a pair of brand spanking new Welcome back everybody to another Motobob video. Now this week Triumph announced these two new little small to mid capacity bikes. We've got the Speed 400 and the Scrambler 400X. And while we've already published a full rundown of all the specs and details, today is actually the first time I've been able to get up close and personal with them with a camera. And so in this video we'll do a full walk around of the bike. We'll start at the front and work our way to the back so we don't miss anything, and hopefully give you a real sense of what these two new bikes really do look like and feel like in the flesh. So look, we'll start at the very front, and that's with the front wheel. And with this, you'll get a real sense of the two different intended purposes of these two different models. So over here on the Speed 400, naturally, with it being a entirely road focused bike, we've got a 17-inch front wheel, which generally is going to give you the sharpest handling and the most responsiveness. On top of that, you've got Metzeler Sportec M9RR tires, and it is kind of an interesting choice. I mean, that came up in the comments a couple of times on the video I published a couple of days ago, that perhaps this is a surprisingly sporty choice for a relatively small capacity sort of retro bike. But generally, I'd say that feeling sort of runs through the whole bike. It really does look like a mini Speedtwin 1200. It's got that slightly forward slant, and as we go through the rest of the spec, you will see that it really does look like it's built to handle. Now over here on the Scrambler, we've actually got a slightly larger 19-inch front wheel, so that's going to give you slightly better rolling over rougher terrain, but also not the full 21-incher that you'll get on stuff like the Scrambler 1200, which really is very off-road focused. And so yeah, I still think the majority of customers are going to ride their Scrambler 400Xs mainly on the road, but if you do want to do sort of light gravel work, and if you do live in a place where perhaps the road surfaces aren't ideal, then that might well make this one look a little bit more appealing. Now to match, we've got Metzeler Karoo Street tyres, and they're sort of adventure tyres, so majority road bias, but again also with a little bit of gravel ability, and they might dig in a bit better on loose surfaces. And you've also got a slightly different wheel design, so they're both cast aluminium, but this Scrambler looks a little bit like a spoke design. They've tried to give it a bit of that retro feel. Generally on retro Scramblers you will find spoke wheels, and so perhaps this is the best of both worlds. It gives it a little bit of that classic look, but you also get the lightness and ease of cleaning and the affordability of a cast wheel. In a way, I actually wish they'd used that more simplistic design on this bike as well. I think I prefer the aesthetics of that, but then you do also have to understand that they probably had to differentiate the bikes visually a little bit, and so this looks perfectly fine, but I think generally across the Scrambler I do slightly prefer the looks. Now let's move on to the brake.
Okay, so I'm back now. Back at it. Okay, let's make a hard drop this time. Yeah! Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, we're going on the containers. Nice! Okay, let's exit, 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 exit. Zero kill, zero damage. Wow.
Brakes, and these are provided by Bybrake, which is basically a more affordable sub-brand of pretty much the most famous brake manufacturer, Brembo. Now, you don't quite get the same levels of premium finish as proper Brembo brakes, and also you'd expect the construction to be a little bit more simplistic as well. But in my experience of riding other bikes with Bybrake brakes, specifically the KTM 390s, for example, get pretty much the same braking setup as these bikes. You know, I've always found them to be really effective, especially on bikes like this that don't weigh that much. The Speed 400 comes in at around the 170 kilogram mark fully fueled, and then naturally with it being a bit bigger and having a bit more hardware, the Scrambler comes in at more like 179.
Scrambler 400X. Oh, by the way, the Scram 400 India, it might cost less than maybe 3,000 US dollars. Let's check. $249, right. So perfectly like 30,000, sorry, 3,000 US dollars. Ex-showroom without all the registration and insurance cost, which might be another 30,000, probably $400. The massive bikes.
Work for this.
Check out this front, crazy भाई बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है.
What? Okay. Okay. He's probably going in the same building. Where is he? close. Where is he? Where is this? Cheeky bastard. Where was he hiding? I went inside and still he hit me. What a joke. Come on.
क्या लग रही है यार, चेक आउट लेट्स सी। डिफरेंट यूसेज होने वाला है बाइक का एंड थोड़ा सा ऑफ रोड की तरफ ज्यादा है, बट जो कलर आपने लिया है ना, मतलब इट इज अमेजिंग सीरियसली। एंड आई हाँ, द कार इज अ बिट डर्टी राइट नाउ, बट बहुत क्रेजी लग रही है गाड़ी, बहुत सुंदर भाई। लडवाल भाई का जो स्पेक है गाड़ी का वो थोड़ा सा ऑफ रोड की तरफ ज्यादा है कर रहा है। एंड द बेस्ट पार्ट यू डिड वाज आपने जो वुड विनियर लिया वो डार्क लिया है, वो बहुत कॉम्प्लीमेंट है। एंड फुटस्टेप्स का भी मैंने पर्सनली जाके देखा कि जो कंपनी वाले हैं वो बहुत ज्यादा स्टर्डी हैं। कंपनी वाले भी 1,75,000 के एंड जो बाहर से मिल रहे हैं वो 25 से 30,000 में मिल जा रहे हैं। तो ऑब्वियसली आप खुद ही लगा लो कि कितना फर्क होगा। एंड ये जो मड फ्लैप्स हैं ये भी बहुत जरूरी है भाई गाड़ी में, एंड इनकी भी प्रीमियम क्वालिटी, ये भी मेरे ख्याल 28-30,000 रुपए के हैं, बट दे आर वेल वर्थ द मनी। ये थोड़ी सी ऐसी चीज है कि आप बाहर से भी लगवा सकते हो क्योंकि इसकी क्वालिटी इतनी मैटर नहीं करती, ये चीज छोटी से पार्ट है। एंड हाँ, दिख नहीं रहा, मैंने आपको क्या बोला, मैं आपको गाड़ी के पीछे छोड़ दूंगा, आप नहीं बता पाओगे किस साइड से लगी है।
इसको कम भी किया जा सकता है। अगर इस पे हॉट गन वगैरह चलाया ना तो कम भी हो जाएगा। जो आफ्टर मार्केट में इसको एडजस्ट करने के लिए लोग बैठे हैं ना, वो करके देंगे।
मैं ये सब आपकी बात मान गया, बट मैं उस चीज़ का क्या करूंगा जो जब से गाड़ी लगी मुझे नींद नहीं आ रही, मुझे नींद आनी बंद हो गई है।
बट थिंक दैट वे सर, अनफॉर्चुनेटली साल में 2 क्लेम है।
हाँ,
कुछ ज़्यादा ऐसा बड़ा क्लेम लेने की ये कुछ
हाउ मच इज द लाइट फॉर, वैसे डलवा देते हैं।
मेरे ख्याल से पेयर कुछ मैंने पता किया था 170-180 था,
180 के आसपास।
जस्ट रिलैक्स। इसको अगर हिल रहा है तो इसको तो देखने को नहीं,
हाँ,
ये जरूरत नहीं है सर।
क्योंकि मैं कोई पार्ट वार्ट इसका चेंज नहीं कराना चाह रहा, सिर्फ अगर लाइट चेंज कर दे तो कोई इशू नहीं है। आई ओपन द कार फॉर यू, चाबी मेरे पास है।
अभी आपके पास
ये लो,
एक बार लाइट जला के देखें कि लाइट के इफेक्ट पे कितना
ना सब कुछ नॉर्मल है, बिल्कुल बढ़िया चल रही है लाइट, कोई कमी नहीं है। गाइस आप लोग बताओ भाई, चेंज कराएं। नेमत का सजेशन ये है, अच्छा इज लाइक अ ब्रदर टू मी, कभी गलत सजेशन नहीं देंगे। बात इनकी भी सही है अपनी जगह पे कि इंश्योरेंस क्लेम 2 ही मिलते हैं।
आई वाज इन द इंप्रेशन कि पूरा टूट
नहीं, पूरा टूटने वाला इसमें है ही नहीं ना, कुछ अंदर है सारी लाइट, ये 2 ही तो ब्लॉक्स बाहर है। देखो, इट्स नॉट एन एक्सपेंसिव पार्ट, ये वैसे भी डलवा देते, विदाउट इंश्योरेंस डलवा देते हैं। 70-80 हज़ार की तो लाइट है, वैसे डलवा देते हैं।
कि इंश्योरेंस आपकी 2.25 लाख की,
हाँ,
लाइट्स 80,000 की,
हाँ।
तो इंश्योरेंस ले लीजिए। 80,000 पॉकेट से क्यों डालना?
हाँ, ये भी है, क्योंकि जब पहले ही 2.25 लाख दिए हैं और इसी चीज़ के लिए तो दिए हैं।
पता नहीं चल रहा सर। इस पे अगर देखिए, ये एक डर है कि इसमें से पानी अंदर जा सकता है।
हाँ, ये है।
अगर आपने हॉट गन और glue
हाँ, वो
किया
सील हो जाएगा, ये सील हो जाएगा।
ना, और इतना पता भी नहीं।
अच्छा, गैप है नहीं इसमें, वो बस चटका है, ये टूटा नहीं है कोई भी। इसमें पानी भी बहुत मुश्किल जाएगा, ये चटक गया है, टूटा नहीं है ये।
लेकिन इसके लिए सेव करने के लिए, क्योंकि इसमें डर्ट और डस्ट जाएगा,
हाँ,
तब विजिबिलिटी बढ़
बढ़ जाएगी।
तो उसको अगर वो हॉट गन से
हाँ, ग्लू गन से वो
just before landing and a bomb blast. I'll take the Tommy. Huh? Okay, so there's a quick draw magnet. Come on, come on. Stay there, stay there, stay there. Stay, boy. Stay, boy. Ah. Come out wherever you are. Where the hell is he looking? Shit. It was a nice fight. Playing only to survive. The mouse control. Shit.
तो बहुत महीनों में पता भी नहीं चले।
बिल्कुल वो सब
Come on. Show me the damage. 1 kill, 122.
सफाई से कर देते हैं। ये मैं आउट ऑफ द
हाँ, बम्पर ये और थोड़ा सा ये पैनल ना हिलने लग गया है ऐसे।
ये तो कर देंगे
और ये फिक्स हो जाएगा, इसका लॉक टूटा नहीं है, सिर्फ लॉक स्ट्रेच हुआ है, तो ये लग जाएगा।
और ईमानदारी से पता नहीं
चल रहा गाइस। अगर ये आपको पीछे से यहाँ से गाड़ी दिखाऊं, आपको लग रहा है कि गाड़ी में किसी ने पीछे से टक्कर मारी दी है, यहाँ से पता नहीं चलेगा। देखो एक काम करते हैं ना, जो अपनी टीम टक्कर बोलेगी वो करेंगे। आप लोग एक बार कमेंट सेक्शन में सजेस्ट कर दो, एक तो वो एक्सेसरीज के लिए सजेस्ट कर दो, और इसमें अगर आप मेरी जगह होते आप लोग क्या करते। वैसे मैं अपना माइंड तो बना चुका हूँ मैंने क्या करना है, बट मैं जेन्युइन अपने भाइयों की सलाह लेना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि एक चीज होती है जितने सर उतने दिमाग हो जाते हैं, तो वो चीज बेटर रहती है। लोग निकल चुके हैं और देखो कैमरा ऑन करते ही रफ पैच आ गया। नई गाड़ी में कितनी घबराहट होती है ना, है पर सही बताऊं तो मेरा तो ये सारी घबराहट जो गाड़ी लगी है ना, इसके बाद सारी निकल चुकी है, पूरा जिगरा खुल चुका है। मैं तो अभी नेमत को भी यही बता रहा था कि जब लगी ना उसके बाद वापसी में फुल भगाते हुए इसको लगा कि मेरा पूरा डर ही खुल गया। तो आपका क्या सजेशन है वैसे गौरव भाई, मतलब आपके पर्सपेक्टिव से क्या है कि नेमत और जो बॉडी शॉप वाले अभिषेक भाई हैं वो दोनों मेरे को ये सजेस्ट कर रहे थे कि आप सर इतनी छोटी सी चीज के लिए क्लेम मत लो कि कल को खुदा ना खास्ता कुछ बड़ा हो जाए तो उसमें हाँ उसमें जरूरत पड़ सकती है। फिर उन्होंने एनसीबी वगैरह की भी बात करी, चलो उन सब चीजों से हमारे को फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बट जो हमारा बम्पर है गाइस वो बिल्कुल ओके रिपोर्ट है, कुछ दिक्कत नहीं है, उसमें सेटिंग होनी है। तो कह रहे हैं मैं एक बार इसको निकाल दूंगा, जो उसके नक्के हैं वो टूटे नहीं है, वो स्ट्रेच हो गए हैं थोड़े से, तो वो थोड़ा सा हीट करके वो वापस अपनी जगह पर आ जाएंगे। और पूरा बम्पर जैसे शोरूम से थी वैसे इसमें हमारा एक फायदा है कि जो हमारा ओरिजिनल लैंड रोवर का पेंट है वो बच जाएगा गौरव भाई, तो सबसे बेस्ट चीज ये है। और दूसरी चीज वो कह रहे हैं कि नेमत ने मुझे याद दिलाया, मैं भूल गया भाई, हमारे थोड़े से पैसे एक्स्ट्रा जा रखे थे लैंड रोवर में, वो इसका हमारे एक्चुअली में हुआ क्या था कि जब मैंने गाड़ी की पेमेंट करी थी थोड़े से फालतू पैसे चले गए थे, अकाउंट ट्रांसफर थोड़ा सा ज्यादा हो गया था, तो आई थिंक 70-80 हजार रुपए मेरे फालतू पड़े हैं लैंड रोवर के पास, और वो चीज मैं कंप्लीटली भूल गया, मुझे बिल्कुल ध्यान नहीं रहा। नेमत ने मुझे याद दिलाया, तो मैं ये समझ लूंगा भाई गाड़ी 60-70 हजार महंगी ले ली जब इतने है ना, और हमारी इंश्योरेंस भी नहीं खराब होगी, और खुदा ना खास्ता कल को नेमत की बात बिल्कुल सही थी कि कल को कुछ बड़ा हो गया और साल के 2 ही क्लेम जैसे, तो 2 बार कुछ बड़ा हो गया, जैसे ये किस्मत चल रही है भाई हो भी सकता है, हो भी सकता है। तो अभी कुछ पता नहीं, आप लोग भाई सजेशन दो कि एक क्लेम खराब करें बिल्कुल इसके पीछे, छोटी सी चीज के पीछे टोटल इसमें जो कॉस्ट आएगा लाइट का ही कॉस्ट आएगा, एंड दैट इज समवेयर अराउंड 80-90,000 रुपीज, इतना कोई आई डोंट थिंक फर्क पड़ रहा है। तो मेरा थॉट प्रोसेस थोड़ा सा चेंज हो गया, पहले मैं क्लेम लेने के एवज में था, बट अभी मैं इस एवज में हूँ कि भाई क्लेम ना लेके खुद ही अपनी पॉकेट से ये लाइट डलवा लूं, क्योंकि हमारा टेक्निकली तो भाई 20-30 हजार रुपए लगेंगे ना, सारे पैसे तो गए हुए हैं ऑलमोस्ट।
Oh. What is this thing? Empty mag. How did we come there? Huh? Oh shit. I almost had him. Almost. Yes, I confirm. Back to the lobby.
मोस्ट तो वो जो हमारे पैसे वो भी यूज अप हो जाएंगे। तो देखते हैं जो भी है, मैंने लाइट आज उनको ऑर्डर करने के लिए बोल दिया है, बाकी जैसे होगा वैसे होगा, देखते हैं।
A few moments later.
भाई अभी हम डिफेंडर को लेके आए हैं ऑटो मार्क पे, और ये देखो साथ में G63 एंड अपनी डिफेंडर। भाई जल्दी से कमेंट सेक्शन में बता दो दोनों में से कौन सी बेटर लग रही है। मेरे को वैसे पता है टीम टकयार का इंक्लिनेशन किसकी तरफ ज्यादा होगा, बट देखते हैं एक बार अपने भाई क्या कहते हैं। अपने को तो भाई अपनी जाने मन बहुत बढ़िया लग रही है। इट इज ऑल ब्लैक एंड इट इज माई ड्रीम कार एंड दिस इज द ओल्ड शेप जी वैगन कन्वर्टेड टू द न्यू वन, बट ये भी बहुत प्यारी लग रही है। साथ में एक रूबिकॉन भी है विच इज लुकिंग एब्सोल्युटली अमेजिंग, पर द स्टार ऑफ द शो फॉर मी इज माई लव ओवर हियर। अभी चलते हैं संजय भैया, व्हाट्स अप, कैसे हो भैया, हाउ आर यू? संजय भैया चेकआउट कर रहे हैं डिफेंडर हमारी। स्पेक कैसा लगा आपको ये बताओ? ब्लैक और अंदर इंटीरियर सारा टैन एंड आइवरी। पास है? भैया कह रहे पास नहीं, हिट है। अब बंद करो ना, अंदर बैठो आप, पूरा बैठो। बहुत अच्छी फील है गाड़ी की, मजेदार गाड़ी है। ब्लैक है ना, अच्छा हाँ। ब्लैक है, सारा ब्लैक है। मैंने सारा ब्लैक पैक लिया, ये सब ब्लैक है, इसमें सारा स्टीयरिंग भी ब्लैक है, ये सारे भी इसमें वैसे वो आते हैं ग्रे से अजीब से, वो भी ब्लैक है। डैशबोर्ड इज ऑल्सो ब्लैक सारा, एंड वहाँ पर वुड विनियर लिया है, उधर नीचे इधर बीच में वुड विनियर लिया है। अंदर मैंने कोई कमी छोड़ी नहीं कि कुछ हमें लगाना ही पड़े बाद में। वो तो यार वो तो तभी तो यहाँ आई है गाड़ी अभी आपके पास। अभी मैंने कहा एक बार आपको दिखा के लाता हूँ गाड़ी। अभी ना पीछे से हिट कर दी थी किसी ने। हाँ तो अभी वो गाइड का ऑर्डर डालने गया था। भाई जिस चीज के लिए मेन मैं आया था वो चीज हमें मिल चुकी है। चेक आउट द की कवर भाई, कितना क्रेजी लग रहा है। और ये मतलब बहुत ही प्यारा लगा मेरे को इसका जो डिजाइन है। और इसके अलावा भाई जो चीज मेरे को चाहिए थी वो मिल गई यहाँ पर। भाई कंपनी में मैंने जैसा बोला था वीडियो में, इतना फायदा नहीं है कोई इतने महंगे। इट इज द सेम क्वालिटी ओवर हियर, ये देखो। और सिंस इट्स अ ब्रिटिश कार तो फिर आप यहाँ पर यूनियन जैक देख सकते हो, बहुत प्यारा लग रहा है भाई। तो ये वाले मड फ्लैप फाइनल कर दिए। एंड सिंस हमारी गाड़ी की थीम पूरी ग्लॉस ब्लैक है तो ये जो मैट फिनिश में इसको मन्नू भैया अभी भेज के पूरा ग्लॉस ब्लैक करा देंगे, हमारी गाड़ी से पेंट मैच कर देंगे और फिर हम अपनी गाड़ी में लगा लेंगे। गाइस अगर आपके पास डिफेंडर है, ट्रस्ट मी यू नीड मड फ्लैप्स, क्योंकि इसमें भाई 80 टायर्स के साथ मेरे ही बहुत ज्यादा कीचड़ उड़ाती है। तो मड फ्लैप्स आर अ मस्ट ऑन योर डिफेंडर। मन्नू भैया ने यहाँ बुफे ही लगा दिया है, वो फॉर द लेडीज। यार तो मेटल है पूरा, मेटल बहुत बढ़िया लग रहा है ये वाला। यार अपने को आपने वैसे वो क्यों दिया रबर वाला, हमें मेटल वाला क्यों नहीं दिया? अच्छा वैसे ही आता है।
ये नई वाली जितनी भी एमजी कार्स
हाँ।
हैं, मर्सिडीज की न्यू वाली
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है,
ये सबका मंगा दिया है।
ये भी मेटल है, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है यार।
ये ओल्ड वाली जो मर्सिडीज थी,
हाँ,
उससे पहले वाली
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
उसका भी मंगा दिया।
पहले भैया ने मेरे को गलती से ये वाला दे दिया था, पिंक वाला, ये वाला मैं वापस भिजवाया। फिर मैंने कहा भैया पोर्टर कर, तो भैया ने पोर्टर करा BMW का। और BMW वो वाली मेरे पास तो दूसरी BMW उसका। तो ये वाली यार ये बड़ी क्रेज। अच्छा ये वो वाली जो डिस्प्ले की है भाई, बहुत क्रेज। ये मेटल तो फील इसकी अलग है यार।
ये भी एक
कार्बन में, ये
कार्बन के अंदर
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, नाइस। ऐसे कार्बन का मेरी इसके लिए भी मंगा देना ना।
Second generation Volvo XC90, and I'm going to be trying to answer the question, should you buy one? Let's find out, shall we? Firstly, a bit of history. The Volvo XC90 was first released back in 2002, and it was a big hit. It was popular with almost everyone. Everyone apart from me. I don't like them at all, I could never see the appeal. I didn't really understand the hype. That first model ran all the way until 2014, by which time it felt incredibly old-fashioned and out of date. Yes, alright, they'll seat 7 people and they had 4-wheel drive and the seats were quite comfortable, but that's where it ended for me. I didn't like the drive, the seating position, the sat-nav, the handling, the performance, the engine noise, didn't like the interior. It was quite a long list. I was desperately hoping that this second generation was much better. Good news, it is. It's a seriously good car, this. I like it already and I've only spent the morning with it. This second generation XC90 was released in 2015, and at that time in my life I was actually doing some work in Sweden. I remember flying into Gothenburg Airport, Göteborg, I think they pronounce it there, and they had a brand new XC90 on a plinth at the arrivals hall. And I remember wandering over to it to have a look and just thought, wow, that will sell like hotcakes. Sure enough, it did. Compared to the previous generation, this was just a breath of fresh air. It was like comparing chalk with cheese. It's a lovely looking car. I think it's a very handsome design, especially in this sporty R-Design spec like this 2017 model I'm in today. There are 3 different trim levels. There's the base spec Momentum, which is the cheapest, there's the sporty R-Design model like this, or there's the Inscription model, which is the most luxurious.
got the same guy.
I just think it looks classy and sophisticated. What I like most about it, I think, is that it looks expensive, but you don't feel like a show-off when you're in it. You'll feel as though you've done well in life, but it doesn't look like you've got more money than sense. It just has a certain Scandinavian charm. Nearly killed a bird then. Moving inside, it gets even better.